The first question is whether or not we think that the halvings are what started the bull markets. Do we really think that they are the main cause of bull markets? It's amazing how powerful they are at making bull markets happen. Second, do we think this bull market will end very soon like the last three? We learn about three important issues that will affect the future of Bitcoin and money in this new interview with Fred Krueger on Krueger's YouTube account. Firstly, how rate cuts by the Federal Reserve have changed the way the Bitcoin market works. Second, how Bitcoin's price changes, such as the half effect, affect its value in the long run. Third, the idea that Bitcoin could be used as a safety net against unstable economies at a time when global markets are unsure. Bitcoin is worth about $62,000 right now. It has lost 1% in value in the last 24 hours and gained 14% in value over the last 30 days. Don't forget to like, join, and share this channel before we talk about these ideas. Let's hear more from Fred Krueger now. The market has been going up for. After a year and a half, the bull market really began in January 2023. Now that it's October, the bull market has been going for almost 2 years. Also, let's think about it. Can the power law or some other method of looking at past trends tell us how high and how long we're going to go? In Bitcoin, everyone is crazy about the idea of loops that last 4 years. There is a strong link between the idea of a 4-year cycle and the idea of halving, as well as the following facts. When the first half was cut in half in November 2012, a bull market began soon after in January or February 2013. It all began in November 2014 with the bear market. The bear market began 12 months after the first half. In July 2016, the second cutting began. It all began in November 2017 with the bear market. Now it's been 16 months. The third cutting in half began in May 2020. In September 2021, the bear market began. Again after 16 months. So halvings happen every 4 years and bear markets happen every year. Every say 12 to 16 months after that, right? If you stick with this line of thinking, I think you would say that the fourth half began in April 2024. That means 16 months from now, the bear market should begin. That would put us in August 2025 just to be on the safe side. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners are crazy about this for some reason or another. Plus, I believe we should take a step back from this study because these three events are likely to scare us. The halves happen every 4 years because they are set to do so. A lot of people also think that the bear market might happen right after the split. So I think there are two main questions which I wrote down and sent out on Twitter. Let's look at these questions on their own. First, let's talk about the halves. Do you care about the halves? Well, I would say that the first and second halves were very important, right? Because they were a huge amount of supply was cut, and especially after the first half, there wasn't a huge market for Bitcoin before the first one. That's how Bitcoin really came to be. What a huge difference it made when there was this huge supply shock. Because we just heard Fred Krueger talk about how Bitcoin can handle inflation and how Federal Reserve cuts affect its path, let's now talk about Bitcoin's price cycles and how the half event will affect its future value. Fred also talks about how important it is for Bitcoin's next big step that institutions accept it and that it is liquid in traditional finance. These ideas give us a good look at what Bitcoin could become in the future. Let's keep listening to Fred Krueger as he explains what will happen next. If you go all the way down to 2028, the price of Bitcoin will drop from 450 Bitcoin to 225 Bitcoin. This is called a supply shock. Now, that being said, Bitcoin might be worth a lot more, but that's still 200 Bitcoin per day. This is not even close to what it was in 2016, for example. 95% of the Bitcoin has been mined so far. I don't think the supply shock of cutting in half will have as much of an effect. Just not sure if the next half will lead to another bull market in the same way. I think that what will make it happen is more likely just Tradfi's financial acceptance and access to money. I'm not even sure about that. The way a bull market works is by having not so clear. That's the cutting in half. How long did the bull market last? For sure, I believe in these boom markets we've had three and what they bring. It's not a huge amount of information. The market is in 3 bull runs. It's because our exponential rise can't last. It really is exponential. And I think Giovanni made a good point of this. It's kind of going up every day, it goes up by 1%. And it's just going to keep going up and up. You know, the bubble is going to pop, and it does. It's not possible because you don't know when it will pop. But if you have this much crazy vertical movement like we've had this year, you know it will pop, you just don't know when. And I don't think the power law really tells you that much about when it will pop because there haven't been enough bubbles yet. For some reason, I think they're particularly hard to time. I don't think math is a very good way to figure out when bubbles will pop. That seems to be the case with Bitcoin. That sounds like it's true for both cooking chicken, fish, and Nvidia. I'm not sure. There are many bubbles that you know are bubbles but can't tell when they're going to pop. That's why I don't know. I also think that if we get into one of these exponential bubbles in 2025, which I think we might, there are a lot of things that could cause us to do so. Things like Trump's election, the use of Bitcoin as a standard, and changes at the SEC, you name it. Dubai is beginning to store Bitcoin. There are a few things that could really set off a full-blown mania trend like the one we had in 2017. And if we do get into that, I don't think math really tells us that we'll stop at 200,000, 200,000, 250,000, or 300,000. It could reach 500,000. Now I think the power law tells us that 500,000 would be the highest amount in this case in the next couple of years. Why? Since 500,000 would be about twice the trend line, and none of the other bubbles have gone above 2 times the trend line, it doesn't look like it will happen. Also, it looks like the percentage to the trend line is going down and down. I think 500,000 would be a high number. In line with the power law, it is still. We're not going to break all of our models just because you hit 500,000. But it's still possible though, right? When it does pop, I think it will be like any other bubble, will go back down through the trend line and settle at a level about 1 standard deviation below. Also, that would be really painful. That's 75% of the way back to the high point. It's going to be terrible. But there's also a chance that we don't have one of these bubbles. We're not in one right now, right? Right now we are 20% below the trend line. There are a lot more smart people getting into this market now than there were during the bubble in 2017. It's more stable now than it was during the last bubble when there were a lot of plans like FTX. The documents were coming apart and this wasn't sustainable. So maybe we don't get caught in this huge bubble. If that does happen, I don't see why we couldn't keep going into 26 and have, say, a 40% increase in 2025, a 50% increase in 2035, and another 40% increase in 2026, or maybe even in 2027. So I don't think these things go against the power of the law. As I said before, I think it's hard to predict bubbles, but I'll let other people do that. The Kelly criterion adjustment seems like the best choice for me because I don't have to guess what will happen. I don't need to guess. Because of this, I don't want to sell all of my Bitcoin because I think we're in a bubble. I do not want to do it. At most, I want to rebalance to about a 70% share. There's a lot of math behind why Kelly is a good plan.